Hello everybody! I'm Jellitops. Now chances are, if you're not already one of my silly sores, you have no idea who I am. I actually want to take this opportunity to reintroduce myself because this is one of the only few long-form videos that I have on my channel. So without further ado, let me go ahead and do that intro again. I'm Jellitops, a dummy gummy dino girl VTuber. I'm a very new VTuber. I've only been doing this for about 3 months. At the moment, my priority has been short-form content. If you're looking at me and asking where my streams are, well, I don't stream. And trust me, I don't blame you for thinking that. VTubers are basically synonymous with streamers at this point. I currently don't have plans to stream, but I did make a Twitch just in case I ever warm up to the idea. Live performance and interacting in real time has always been something a little intimidating for me, so thank you for your patience. With that out of the way, let me tell you a little bit about what my shorts are about. I love to yap about my nostalgia. I talk about old movies, cartoons, video games, anything that triggers that nostalgic spark. I also like to do 10 to 15 second long shorts. Duh. I also like to do 10 to 15 second silly shorts, which are basically tiny little skits. I do love me a good meme. I also started a recent series where I talk about shenanigans, basically going through all of the silly stuff I've done over the years. I'm a dummy for a reason. And last but certainly not least, I like to show off some speed paints, which makes a great segue into my categories. Outside of being obviously a VTuber, I'm an artist and a yapper. And if you read the title, what you're looking at right now is my version 2 showcase. I would say I'm debuting it for the first time, but I may or may not have shown it off in shorts already. Well, just the torso and the face. Cut me some slack, I was excited. I can't help if I'm an artist that loves to show her process. Which I probably should mention that I am both the artist and rigger of both my models. And that's basically why V2 is coming on the heels of V1 after only 3 months. I really wanted to see if I can push myself and improve my rigging. That, and I really wanted my art style to line up with my nostalgic theming. And I will certainly get into that. Why don't you stick around and I'll start by comparing V2 and V1. Let's go! So this right here is V1. V1 and all subsequent designs are essentially the product of my love for my favorite childhood icons. This right here is the mood board. Of the things compiled here, I'd say my biggest inspirations for my design are Barney, the big comfy couch, and Dragon Tails. With the mood board in mind, this is the character design that came out of it. A dummy gummy dino girl, as I like to call myself. Because this was going to be my very first try at Live2D, I tried to make my design fairly simple. Most of the complexity in my design is really just in the jelly parts. You know, my jelly tail, my jelly horns, my jelly skirt. Just a whole lot of bouncing. V1 would have never existed if it weren't for a very specific set of tutorials that I followed, and I'm going to link them below. Seriously, thank you. But as you might expect from a V1 model from a first-time Live2D rigger, there's problems. Don't get me started on the mess that is her files, first of all. And number 2, a lot of her movements are stiff. Here's a quick demonstration of her X, Y, and Z movements. As you can see, I tried my best to follow the tutorials to make expressive body language, but her movements are still limited. I did try to improve her recently by adding some extra bounce to her X and Y movements, but things are still pretty stiff. One egregious mistake that I made that I'm going to air out, probably at my expense, you see her shirt and the sleeves, both the arms. That's all one part. Yeah. You'd think after having it drilled into my head that you need to have all the parts properly cut so you can have effective rigging, that I'd cut the shirt, but I didn't. Outside of the pom-poms and the chest, that's all one layer, which leads to some very awkward warping that I tried to pass off as perspective. There's no perspective involved here. Now in reality, it's an easy fix, just cut the parts. I decided against it because I thought it was going to be a more productive decision to basically start from scratch. I know most of us were students at some point, which means that we understand that in order to pass a test, we have to effectively apply the study material, which is exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to take V1 and basically improve. That's not to say I didn't do cool things with V1. Let me show you all of the outfits I made, for example. I didn't want to let my mistakes with V1 stop me from trying new things like learning toggles and giving her new outfits. So with that established, let me go ahead and walk you through the concept stages for V2. Fun fact! V2 is actually using the exact same base sketch as V1. Despite wanting a major stylistic change, I wanted to make sure my proportions were similar enough. These stylistic changes are most present, I think, in my face. I exchanged purple mascara for black mascara. A common feature that you'll notice in 90s and early 2000s cartoons is that most characters are usually outlined in thick black line art. If I remember the words of my art teacher correctly, thick black lines made it easier for a character to stand out against a background, especially if a background was lineless or using colored line art. Take right now, for example. I stand out pretty decently against my background, don't I? It was all intentional. After doing so many shorts yapping about my nostalgia, I just knew that I wanted my art style to really reflect my passion. So even though V2 is technically the simpler model, I end up becoming a lot more expressive due to stylistic and rigging changes. And what better way to do that than to show you in real time? I'm gonna hope that my tracking cooperates with me while I try to show you all of the subtle differences in my V2 rigging. So first up is X, which is side to side. Very simple, very simple. If you notice one difference, I'm actually stepping on my tippy toes now. If you notice the Z-axis on my V1 model, she kind of awkwardly waddled like a penguin. You can probably see it, but on the Z-axis now, I actually have my steppies rigged here. I also made my arms cross behind my back just to give a cute kind of coy look. Actually, check this out. I kind of resemble a love-struck Bugs Bunny whenever I do a very specific combination here. Watch. That was definitely not intentional. Adding some arm movement on the Z-axis also makes it so I have a lot more movement even in a more neutral setting. Next up is the Y-axis, and honestly, when I look up, it's pretty normal. The kicker here is the Y-axis down, and I saw some really awesome models on X that basically had a lean forward animation. Now I'm not sure if they rigged it to the Y-axis down, but I did it and it's honestly hilarious. Now I didn't figure out how they actually made the model move forward with it. I don't know if that's a setting in VTube Studio, but I'll figure it out eventually. Now let's take a look at some of my toggles. I honestly don't have as many as I do for V1 at the moment, but I'm planning to rig them really soon. First things first, I can take off the party hat. And if you notice, the hat actually has a lot more interesting physics now. It actually feels like it's tilting with my horn and not kind of jiggling with it. My second toggle is RAR. RAR XD. I basically wanted to shake up my waving toggle from the previous model and make it more of a dinosaur RAR. And last but certainly not least is the tongue toggle. At the moment, I have it bound to a key because honestly, the tongue tracking on my camera is very annoying. You can probably see in some of my other shorts that the tongue will just randomly blep out of nowhere, and I really don't have the skill to always edit it out. I'm actually planning to add zany, cartoony expression toggles in the future, but here are some of the expressions I can make with the tracking. Honestly, half my time as a VTuber has just been that. Making silly expressions and hoping that it translates. And that, my friends, is all I really wanted to demonstrate for my showcase. If you made it this far, then I want to sincerely thank you for watching. If you're interested in the type of content that I make, then feel free to become a silly soar. We have a good time around here. We all love yapping about nostalgia and reminiscing on the past. I want to cultivate a space where you can feel free to stop on by and relax. If you're interested in following me on my other socials, my link tree will be in the description below. So thank you so much for watching, and if you're interested in hearing me yap some more, then feel free to stick around. Bye-bye!